All right, guys, welcome to March 15th pre-recorded Zoom. Right, so immediately following up from what we had spoken on Friday, just from what I can recall, I know that we were pretty much acknowledging that our continuation was still to the upside, even though we were approaching, a potential higher time frame POI. And even now, if you wanted to narrow it down to some particular areas, right, the two relative areas of interest would basically be there, right? Even though those are all within the overall POI, just for the meantime, we are kind of expecting, these two previous liquidity points to be taken out in the near future, probably within the next couple of months. So when analyzing our internal structure, we know that we are still internally bullish, so we can only assume that via the internal structure, right? So like we said, we had our structure tap, right? I believe this was last week. Yeah, right around last week. And immediately, right after we had that structure tap, we had the continuation in structure. We had a potential invalidation POI here, which was immediately taken out, no reaction intended inside. So because that is the case, that means the preliminary structure has been taken, right? So we are bullish internally. So where are my internal structural ranges? Well, here is my minor intraday, right? So in between this, we're still currently within, bullish structure. A bit interesting to note, because especially after today, a big reason why I don't like to trade Mondays. I mean, it's an inconsistent thing, but you still see it. So at the moment, right, we are internally bullish from a minor intraday. So now internally, right, we see the break of structure. So immediately once this is taken out, right, you are assuming bullishness, right, unless you break internal structure without taking out the high. So unfortunately, we get the internal POI bounced off. We take preliminary structure out, meaning this is now solidified high. So it could be internal unwillingness, but it really wouldn't be external unwillingness until our previous structure point would have been taken out. But even though that's the case, because we have the balance and we have the internal structure, it's harder to justify the any type of bullish scenario here, right? Because we are taking out structure here, right? So what's important to note here is after we've taken out structure, right, immediately we have the immediate continuation that takes out previous liquidity, and this is where it gets very, very important. Because we took liquidity, we did not create a substantial new low. However, because we have taken this out in the form of a break of structure, we do have the continuation in play. The continuation here being, right, 50% technically of inefficiency there. So because this led to a continuation BOS, this is a confirmed reaction. This solidifies, pretty much this as the high-low retracement continuation. So because this, right, and we can start zooming in here now a little bit more as well. Because this, right, continuation, based on the 50% efficiency that we just showed, because that takes out previous structure and then immediately challenges the high again, that's an internal bearish liquidity grab. So from the continuation perspective of the low into the high, right, this is now in alignment with that. So depending on how you wish to take a trade, no matter what, your invalidation is here. Because the invalidation is there, right, you can take, right, a you know, I don't want to say conservative, but it is conservative from a minor intraday time frame. But we were being aggressive because we were focusing on a continuation liquidity grab that's very, very internal, and by that I mean more of a scalp liquidity grab. So either way, no matter how you wish to approach the trade, the invalidation is here because this is what caused the internal liquidity grab. And at the moment, that's pretty much what's driving price right now. So because actually, let me go back to M5. Because the liquidity grab has, you know, been, you know, successful with, you know, giving us that push up, right? And because, right, where the initial liquidity grab had begun, that structural range has also been taken. So this is very, very crucial because this is now my continuation invalidation point. Invalidation point. So because this invalidation has been met, right, we can now begin to zoom out a little bit more, right, and begin to, I can actually delete all of this and pretty much simplify it for now for a narrative perspective, because now, right, all of this, right, all of this has been this entire move that we just studied. All this means is that we have, right, a minor intraday liquidity grab based on the external bullish structural range, which is based on the external beyond that, which would be probably like a swing major intraday, bullish structural range. So when you have the overall, then the internal, and then the internal based on that to all show the same narrative, it really gives me a lot of confidence to focus on, where is this, right here, gives me the confidence to assume that we will probably see the continuation. Yes, you can argue this. Let me show you this. You can argue this, of course, would make a lot of sense. But it's just this. Not only are we looking at a ton of momentum into the POI, we are also seeing this supported by bullish and supported by bullish. It's just harder to justify the opposing narrative, right? Especially because if this were to work, then, I mean, let's look at it now from an order flow perspective. We had some very strong mitigations per se, maybe another potential strong mitigation, but we are not creating substantial new lows. No substantial new lows, right? Meaning it's taking a lot of effort, right, for price to continue to go lower, right? So what could this be essentially signifying? Well, I mean, it looks very corrective. So that's pretty much what I would assume it would be. And especially now with the whole narrative trying to show us more of a bullish sense, makes a lot of sense for it to, you know, continue higher. Continue higher, sorry. And literally that would pretty much be the inverse for EURUSD. I know that we had mentioned a blue POI here. I don't think that met. But I more so care to speak about, right, the H4. It's actually looking a little messy. So let me actually delete a bunch of this stuff. Hide this. Right, so for the meantime, we know that we had a bullish push, and we already spoke about how this was a clean push up just for the short term, right? I know that at the end of the week we had covered, right, pretty much this. Basically, had covered this, right, being as an, you know, pretty much a liquidity grab, a false flag that is giving us that bearish narrative into the downside. So we know that the mitigation is clear here, right? The mitigation is clear. We unfortunately didn't get this, as a form of continuation, but we have made those continuations. However, we did get an internal set of unwillingness here, right, via here, right, unwillingness technically, based on the previous low there, but not really too important. But because we do have a solidified low, we do have the pullback initiation, but because the narrative is bearish, right, all I need to do is look for that bearish conversion to then find, you know, those bearish continuations, because we know that from a whole sense we are still bearish, even if we're, you know, accounting this bullish POI. No matter what, we are still bearish. And I would only argue against that probably until we take this out, right? Unless we have like a big unwillingness here and this is taken out, then yeah, I would start to argue more of a bullish sense. But right, as of now, right, just based on what's happened this week, we know that there was an initial reaction. The initial reaction, I believe this is based on a was this based on a PO? I believe it was, if I recall correctly. Yes, right here. Right, but I don't really like to see two taps of the same POI. Maybe there's something internally. And you could argue the wick, I mean the candle open, but yes and no. But what I'm trying to get at here is that we had an internal, right, bearish liquidity grab, right? But unfortunately, right, we take out the high, take out the low. But unfortunately, right, when we begin the bullish pullback, right, this did not create a new low. So when this does not create a new low, then it's harder for me to justify this, you know, these continuations. Just because we could be either, right, beginning the overall pullback, right, or the timing may not always be correct. So I'd like to, for example, I'd rather have the significant low be taken out, or significant low be taken out. We get a very clear structural range, and then try to play whatever, right, PY, and then play the reaction. That's essentially what I would prefer to do, instead of trying to play a move that hasn't created a new structural range. It's just if you guys actually look into that, it is a bit inconsistent when you don't let it fully show its hand and you get caught up within the pullback. But whatever, with this, right, we begin the pullback. This is technically now unwillingness, because high, low retracement. Obviously we have solidified points, we have a bearish liquidity grab, but this is unwillingness based on the previous low. So now we are technically bullish for the meantime, right, up until we convert. So for now we are bullish right here, up until, right, we now see the solidified points up here. This solidified point, this is only the continuation BOS of low, high retracement, right? But we then had obviously high into low into high, that then breaks structure. So I'd still consider this to be part of the pullback here. But when the pullback, I believe this is, I'm gonna guess this with M10. Yeah, M10 inefficiency. M10 inefficiency. Wrong button. M10 inefficiency leads into the break of a preliminary structure point. So this to me is a confirmed reaction. Low, high, retracement, reaction, break of structure, right? This would mean technically unwillingness. And just like what we said with DXY, right, your invalidation for that continuation into the downside would have been here, right? So it doesn't matter where you would have taken your trade, whether it's by the wick or whatever this internal wick even may be. If no matter what potential trade you're taking, your invalidation is here, because up until this point we are bullish. Low, high, retracement, confirm reaction, right, break of structure here, right? So yes, you can still technically argue that we are still within a POI, and the POI can be hit twice because that's technically what happened here from the overall sense. Well, yes, but it's all about studying reactions, right? The reactions are what's going to tell you what effort it is giving you, how much effort, well, not only how much effort is being shown, right, but how that effort is affecting the market in terms of, right, am I getting high effort, low result, low effort, high result, you know, and that's pretty much going back into course material. So because this now creates the continuation BOS, this shows me a failed reaction in internal bearish liquidity grab, and so that's what's creating the continuation now, and that conversion, it's what's pretty much inclining me to still agree with, you know, the continuation to the downside, with my invalidation of probably being here. Whereas if this invalidation is met, I would need another conversion to, you know, pretty much still be with that bearish bias, right? And AU, pretty much a simpler one, much simpler. So we know we were aiming for, you know, the previous liquidity that was taken out, and we were trying to see what would happen within the POI. That was pretty much our summary from last week. And internally, right, just based on the POI, internally, right, no real reaction up until here. So this could have been the liquidity grab of the POI, and this just creates, right, the internal, which would have been from the high, this last solidified point, into the low. That's just beginning that continuation there. So that's why you can see that the structure tap is just a continuation based on the internal structure. So even though there is a potential bullish POI, I don't want to, you know, fight against that internal structure, because that internal structure is what creates these daily candles. So as you can see, the continuation is still in place, and this one too. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't see price coming higher than that, and just the continuations. Today was a very good day for you guys to observe conversions, just to see how they operate, and how they create narratives for pretty much the rest of the week. Well, I'm not gonna say for the rest of the week, just because one liquidity grab could change the entire bias. But you guys get what I'm trying to say here. Just pretty much finding the narrative via what happens at the beginning of the week, and you can just catch the continuations for the rest of the week. But yeah, I mean, up until now, it's just hard to justify, you know, not following those continuations. Like, as of now, this blue line seems very, very, very possible within maybe even the next 2 weeks. So we'll have to see about that. And yeah, with that being said, just be wary of those continuations, and I will see you guys on Friday.